Live. Yeah.
Yeah, sons of light, long live the King of Kings, Lord of Lords, creator of heaven and earth. It's a big production, boy. Feel his pain, instead of striving to get his name, I'd rather live in shame, cause niggas die when they live in fame. The ending game, what a war within the brain. Don't get caught by that lust in your heart, become insane. Who can heal the lame and have them walk within the lane? Only the Lord walk on that dark without the blame. The living rain, another fact, he live in rain. Many wonder it's words you can search but not contain. How niggas find a dollar with God, forgot to change. Like seeing tracks, black the conduct, but forgot the train. When you die, yeah, you covered in blood and become a stain. So anything outside of that blood's considered vain. Sons of light, order Melchizedek. Keep the commandments of Yah, die trying. Yahoo. I like to start by giving praises to the Father. What a time to be alive. Prophecy as it is written live right before our eyes. Daniel's visions right outside. Truth all been falsified. Raised up in a society that don't want me to thrive. Born to be Papa's only one and my mama's oldest son. In an era where most our young die because of gangs and guns. Plagued with dreams and nightmares of being everything from neighborhood superstars to struggling dope fiends. Ran with the worst of the best. Trouble took two to the chest. All this drama and this stress, yeah, I was showed it all the tests. Too long living for my flesh and chasing my desires. The meek gonna inherit the earth and Satan's just a lie. Long live the King. Have mercy on us all, Father. Forgive us all for being lost, whether we admit it or not. Back and forth in his own room, mind steady pacing. Look at the times we facing through these trials and tribulation. And we pray our people make it 1/3, given to make it 2/3, given to say. In this walk here, baby, ain't no time for faking. A mother with a heart of gold, but liquor in her liver. Son trying to give it a picture that the world's against her. Father stressing by paper, smoking swerves to fellow kidneys. Brother lost to the world, even though the world is empty. Sister having these babies, and they say too many children. Fall in your head, sister, stay out your feelings. No religion, but Jehovah is my witness. Besides me, Lord, please grant my brother repentance. It's a big Dutch boy.
Welcome, welcome, welcome to a Hebrew state of being. And we are your humble servants and hosts for the night. I am Kyle.
And I am Oba.
Shalom.
Shalom.
So it's been quite a time in New Orleans for the last 7 days, 2 weeks.
Yeah.
Many things happening in the city. One, of course, we had this what they call a Mardi Gras season.
Oh, yes.
Also with the Mardi Gras season, and shouts out to everybody on Facebook, man. My brother Kevin, Shotgun Slim. We got Sharonda in the building. We got Yawan. We got Tamara, my
what
sister.
Up, family? How y'all doing?
We got Coco in the building. She was first in the building tonight. All praises, you know what I'm saying? So
good show tonight.
yeah, so we just played a little bit of Sons of Light called Humility. Great song, great artist out of St. Louis, man. Sons of Light, definitely check it out. Especially when your spirit is low and you're fighting, you know what I'm saying? You need some good music, and as great as Lil Wayne or Cardi B or Beyonce may be when you feel like you need inspiration to fight all of the ills of the day because that beat keep you going, right? Well, this is the same type of beats on this side as well, and the words are more food for your soul and for your spirit than the words that come from our
Mainstream.
music, our mainstream music. our mainstream music is angry, you know, and I loved it. I can't, you know what I'm saying? As a person that's full of passion, that type of music that appears to come across as strong and my is a muse or inspiration to my individuality or to me taking claim of who I am, whether it be through my hood, through my city, or through the hustler mentality or whatever it may be, those those songs ring to that, you know, they sing to that, you know, but I'm saying that there's another level of inspiration that can help you beat these and fight these demons and these wars that we got that go way past anger, because anger doesn't sustain a war. It's
No
good
way.
for a battle, but it doesn't sustain a war. In order to have a war, you need to have spiritual fruit, as they say, or spiritual food, or so this Sons of Light, B Hood Productions, Hebrew Hood Music by Peasy, RealJudah.com by Peasy. You know, all these different Hebrew artists, and they got a whole bunch more. That's just the southern ones that I'm really into because I like southern beats. And B Hood is an outstanding producer. So we suggest that you guys check them out. Of course, the Fourth Tribe Static Addicts. I can't leave out my brothers Malachi.
No
You
way.
know what I'm saying? Obadiah. You know what I'm saying? So, but back to the point, man. Tonight, man. In the last 2 weeks, New Orleans has gone through so many changes in the weather as well. You have to take into account that our bodies are physically fighting this weather change. This is an irregular weather. If you
Oh yeah.
understand that the temperature should not drop 10 to 15 degrees within an hour to
No way.
an hour and 30 minutes. The temperature should not drop that much or that rapid in any direction. That is a clear sign of our earth and our seasons. So fighting the sickness of your body through this weather, trying to prepare for the people that's preparing for Carnival and the ones that were preparing for Mardi Gras. There's a lot of spirits in the air while your physical body is weak. Y'all may think that that's crazy. What are you saying? Are you alluding that we're saying that through the being physically sick or your immune system being weak, that you are susceptible to these spirits that are around, these spirits of iniquity or these dark evil spirits? It's absolute fact.
Weaker.
Yeah, when your body gets weak at any time, you're susceptible to the devil. When we look at Esau, who sold his birthright to Jacob for porridge because his body was physically weak. When we see any times, even look at Yahushua when he came out of his fasting and the 40 days, and you saw the devil offer him all of these different things. It is when our body is weak, is when we are susceptible to spirits or lower vibrations. If we don't want to use spirits, lower vibrational frequencies, right? And let's put it in a layman terms, the weaker you are physically, the less mentally you are strong to be able to combat stupidity, lies, fraud, deception, good judgment,
Yes.
period.
Yes.
The
Yes.
weaker your body is, the less your judgment, the weaker your judgment tends to be. That's just facts, and you may not
Makes
notice it.
sense. Even in sports, man. The more tired you get, you don't throw the same punches if you're a boxer. You don't run the same, routes if you are a running back. You don't protect the same if you a cornerback. Whatever the case is, no matter what sport you are.
Like I see my sisters tuned in, Jelena, and just going back to work after hurting her shoulder, and spiritually and energetically, she was ready to get back at the job while ago. People like her and my brother, and we are movers and shakers. We have to our spirits won't rest. So even though your spirit is like, yeah, I'm ready to go, if your body isn't physically ready, then you can't properly perform. And even at her job, they wouldn't let her come back to work, even though she felt like she could go back and wanted to go back. They still would not let her go back. So you have to discipline yourself and your body the same way your boss would. Is the reason why I'm bringing it up. You have to manage your own body as you're managing your job and your bills and your kids and the friends and all these things. Do not forget that you have to manage yourself and your body so that you can be the best representation and image of the Most High as you can be. But so we said all of that about these 2 weeks and spirits being down and spirits being low and not being able to function mentally, and spirit is susceptible to doing different things is partly segue into our cultural appropriation tonight. So we want to be strong with it. We're not going to allow our bodies being weak and our mental being weak as well to not forge forward and still give the true information of the moment. And the moment is still Carnival, Mardi Gras. People went to church today for Ash Wednesday to, I guess, be abstained or cleanse themselves from all of the debauchery that they did on yesterday, which is a tradition of this season in New Orleans. So in that, we are going to continue our crusade.
Yeah, crusade, huh?
Our crusade of righteousness on this day, right? So we're going to go into how the tribe of Massai in Africa connects to the Carnival of New Orleans today, yesterday. That's how current we are. How it connected to yesterday's carnival, and how Melville Horowitz, the father, the Jewish, excuse me, I have to say that correctly, right? The Jewish father of African American studies, how all of those three things connect together. You say, that's pretty out there. How can all of those things connect and be present right now? After all, Melville lived in the 20s, 30s, 40s. After all, Africans supposedly been here forever. African Americans supposedly got here in 1619. So how can we juxtapose yesterday's carnival with a white Jewish father, which is Horowitz, Melville Horowitz is the father, the Jewish father of African American studies, how he can have and through academia, I want to be clear, Melville Horowitz is the academia representation of the story of African Americans. I want to be very clear on what we're saying about Melville. Yes, black people, all people, came from what we know right now as Africa. Out of a region the world populated, omni populated, not migrated from here to left to the right, but up, down, side, around. It migrated and moved out. So And understanding that aspect, that Africa and the concept of us as a people coming from there all the way to when all of the continents were connected in Pangea, because when man started, or when they found the bones in Africa, it dated back to a time when the landmass was one mass. You have to keep that in mind when they put out in history that the earliest person was found in Africa. Well, Africa wasn't Africa. North America wasn't North America. It was Pangea, one place, one landmass, and we all came from that if we want to be accurate. Yeah, right? Because we got the academia that want to say from Africa. Africa was named by Caucasians. So if we want to say and prove our blackness, and we want to go back to the names of our blackness, Pangea, or it would be called Sudan, Sudan. I can't pronounce it correctly, but before it was pronounced Sudan, as Sudan, the southern aspect of present day Africa. It was known as Sudan, which was a Hebrew land. If we want to go back to what Africa was, or us, that people that came from that region in antiquity was known as a Hebrew land, from the area in which the first bones were found. That's a lot of conversation. What that got to do with all of this?
It's a lot of data.
That's a lot of data. Hogwash. What we talking about? Well, what we're trying to establish is that when we're discussing anyone coming in and establishing a title on a group of people, normally the accurate way of applying a title to a group of people is to associate those people with the landmass in which they originated from. So when we get the title of African American, it means that we were started in Africa. Well, that's a misnomer. We started in Pangea. We didn't start in Africa, because the slave trade was before the 1619. Slave trade has been happening since 200s, 300s. We're talking slavery of indentured servants of the Slavics, who were first slaves, the Yugoslavians, right? Did you know that the first slaves were white, Caucasian, from Yugoslavia? It's where they got the term slave. Anyway. When a person puts a title on that, that means that we all have to identify with what their society says we came from. And in order for us to fit that, then we have to fit every criteria that goes with that title. It does not allow you to be anything inside of African American other than what the definition of African American is. While in your mind, as a person of color that is taking pride from a landmass that you believe represents a color of people, that is not what academia nor society nor the laws look at African American as. The system says that African Americans started with slavery. That is where African Americans started from. It does not state that you started from a landmass on the Eastern Hemisphere and then migrated through slavery, through sheer national disasters, through famine, through loss of food supply, or desires to worship the Most High without any paganism. They don't give you any of those options in the title of African American. The title of African American must be a person that has been brought here through the transatlantic slave trade.
It's an umbrella term. Blanket term to cover anybody.
Blanket.
Melanation. You got any melanin? You're African American. Cheers.
Cheers. Although the term African American can apply to a Caucasian that was born in Africa that has now moved to America.
I have friends from Zimbabwe who, yes, that does happen to them. And when they had to leave, some friends had to leave South Africa because their lands were taken over. They came here to America and they got into schools free, and because they got African American scholarships.
Yes, they did. Got African American scholarships. Caucasians did legally, because that's what the title in the judicial and academia society says that it is. Regardless of what pride you and your dashiki apply to it in your home, in your neighborhood. that is the actual facts. So again, how does that information connect to yesterday's carnival and Melville Horowitz? Well, Melville Horowitz, and I'll on that part, I'll let my brother explain who Melville Horowitz is.
Yes, Melville Herskovich.
Herskovich, excuse me.
Melville Gene Herskovich was born on September 10th, 1895, to Jewish parents that had moved to Ohio, and he's known as the father of African American studies, the Jewish father of African American studies. He went to college and earned a Bachelor of Philosophy at the University of Chicago, and went to school in New York City for his graduate work at Columbia University. So he went to some of the top schools, and at Columbia University is where he met Frank Boas.
At Columbia.
Yes.
Frank
Boas. We're gonna get to Frank. He's very important.
Very important.
Now, Melville wrote his dissertation, which is a very important paper to get your PhD. He wrote that dissertation on the cattle complex of Africa, East Africa. He had to focus on, right? And I'm like, man, a cattle complex.
East Africa.
Yeah.
See, East Africa is where the transatlantic slave trade came from, right? That's what they tell you.
Yeah, he went all across East and West Africa and studied all these quote unquote cattle raising tribes, and was talking about how they're not really good for the country. We need to get them on a reservation kind of place instead, because them being hunters and gatherers, they're hunting game and killing animals. Meanwhile, the Europeans done killed millions. Leopold done killed over 30 million Africans alone. They done wiped out whole jungles.
And it's funny, they consider black people as animals, mass killers, but don't say that it's part of an endangered species.
Yeah.
But we're human then.
Yeah. 1934, Herskovich goes to Haiti, my homeland, and he stays there for a few months, and then he writes the book that the whole world uses.
The whole world
on Haitian voodoo.
Yeah. So everybody's concept of Haitian voodoo
comes from this guy.
Comes from this guy who went to Africa, who comes from Ohio. Get this, man. He comes from Ohio.
Dude whose family was born in Europe.
I was born in Europe.
First generation born here. He's a Jewish father of African American studies. Went to Haiti for 3 months, wrote a book, and now everybody around the world uses this book to understand Haitian voodoo.
And at that, before he even went to Haiti, he was studying African cattle tribes. How does the African cattle tribes prepare him to understand the spiritual aspect of hoodoo, of voodoo, that he turned around and called voodoo.
Because after 1934, he left Haiti and went to Benin. He went to Ghana. He went to Nigeria. He went to Trinidad. He went to all these different places.
And all those places are the slave coast. Every single one of the places that Horowitz went to were part of or slave ports.
Yes.
Slave ports.
And he influenced a guy called Alan Lomax. Alan Lomax is a very famous guy that went out to all these indigenous black populations, wherever they were around the U.S., and he studied their music and recorded all of their music.
Oh, wait, no. He didn't record all of the music.
He recorded all their music.
Wait, all them black people like Lomax and let Lomax come in?
They didn't really let him. Sometimes
They had to let him.
He would walk in with police.
No, he did not.
Especially with
He
the,
did not.
with the jazz guys here in the one, he walked with the police, and he'd be like, it's time to record you.
Wait.
doing your thing.
Hold on.
I need this for the records.
Hold up.
You a black man in a room with two white guys. One
You
of them
telling me
got a gun on him, and the other one's telling you, play the music. I'm about to record that thing.
So you're saying that two white police officers would walk Lomax into a juke joint, so to speak?
Yeah. Or somebody's home. Or
somebody's home at that.
Yeah.
That not even a business
Nah,
establishment.
they would go to the home, to the jazz greats, these guys.
I just want to make sure I'm clear here because I think you're lying to me, Oba. You're lying to our people. This is our family right here. You're lying. You are saying
he's like
that
loved
at
by y'all.
some point in time, early 30s, what's this with the
This is,
Lomax guy?
Lomax in the 40s.
In the 40s, Lomax because they just started having them what's that
The
they call it,
recording devices and all that
phonograph.
stuff?
That's what
Yeah.
they call it, a phonograph. They just started having a place where you could actually play music in a house. And then the slaves couldn't really afford that. They didn't even have really TVs in the 40s. They just started. Motion pictures were still flippographs, man.
But they needed music for those motion pictures. You see? They needed music for all this stuff, and why not just get it from people who you don't have to pay
But
that have all the culture?
But what if they're depicting black people in those films, and they would need music of those black people in the films to
Naturally.
coincide with the...
Yes, they would.
They would, because you can't just show a film... Because, the film started off silent. They didn't have any music.
Yeah.
So you could show the people in the field picking the cotton, but you didn't have that swing low. Yeah, that. It didn't give you the... But Lomax...
Oh, yeah.
Because
he hooked up music for forever.
so Lomax went with the police into people's homes and into the establishments that played music and told them to play the song again while he recorded it with police there so that they could not sue, ask a question about royalty rights or contract, as if they were even able to ask for a contract for their music.
All Jews.
Oh, shoot. And who Lomax known today? He's what is Lomax? He has done, how much work did he do as far as collecting of archiving our black music?
He's the #1 archiver of our music.
He's the-
He even went into the jails. Like, he went into the actual jails and recorded the men in the jails singing the songs as well. Like, there was no border that he couldn't cross to get this information, because they know who they lock up. Whoever's in jail is on purpose, y'all. If you think that it's just some random black dudes in jail, it's not. It's actually not.
Nothing's random about this world that we're in, even though it seems to be that way. Because until now, you would have thought all these old songs that were done, it was done with, consent of those Negro spiritual people singing that maybe somebody brought them in the studio. Maybe you had some visions of Big Mama finally getting a little money that week to take care of the family, and they brought Big Mama in the studio and she sang a song or two for them, and they paid her justly. No. And see, all this stems from a mentality. Just like African Americanism is a title that stems a philosophy and belief. Melville Horowitz, his dissertation, meaning that he was, this was his master's, or would this be after his 4 years? His PhD. So we're saying that a man that went to college at 18, that's now doing his PhD, probably around 25, 27 years old, You're talking about let's give him benefit of the doubt. Let's say a 30-year-old man. Just
You know, nothing.
a 30-year-old man that's the first generation of being in North America, now in college, is giving his college PhD paper, which is a thesis, which is meaning his hypothesis, not his facts, but what he has observed and he believed to be true.
Yeah.
This man, at 30 years old, we're giving him 30, was able to go to Africa, write his dissertation about how the cattle tribes of Africa were ruining Africa. Now, mind you, before colonialism, that's all they did in Africa was farm and cattle and blah, blah, blah. So how can what you've been doing forever now be a problem to the new society? But nevertheless, he states that these people are bad. And from there, Africa has been marginalizing
Yes.
these people or oppressing, let's use the word marginalizing, oppressing, disadvantage, stripping them of resources, appropriating their lands, because you have to have a reason to remove someone from their land. Just like we say in scripture, the devil has to introduce himself. You have to allow him into your home. In hoodoo or voodoo or in any spiritual aspect, they all tell you that you have to ask or allow the devil to come in, which circles back to the beginning of the show. When your body is physically weak, when your immune system is physically weak, you are susceptible to making these type of agreements.
Yeah.
So anyway, so one of these tribes, and how we're connected to our first point of the night. How do we connect yesterday's carnival to Africa? And this is where we do it. That tribe, one of those tribes that are still alive after they've been, since the 1940s and 50s, they've been marginalized and been beaten and pushed away from their lands. One of the tribes that still survived, that we all know about across the world, is the tribe of Massai. The ones that jump up. Well, that same tribe was the tribe that Horowitz was talking about.
Yeah.
The tribe of Massai was the tribe that Melville Horowitz based what he saw there and what he saw on the black people in America. Because at that time, we weren't known as African Americans. We were just indigenous people to this land. He made the connection through his dissertation that the practices that we do in America was similar to the ones in Africa because we were tribal. We had buffalo. We did the same thing as the tribe of Maasai in Africa. We had our own cattle. We had our own vegetation, our own agriculture. We had all these things going in our land until they killed all the buffalo to win the Indian Wars.
To make you dependent.
To make you dependent on their resources. So, Horowitz, studying the tribe of Maasai, said that we have the same type of rituals, traditions, and culture, and said that we stem from these types of people that are also bad for the land.
Yes.
You gotta get that we're just like those people that are bad for that land in Africa, so how could we be good for the land here? So if the mentality was, after what Horowitz has put together, his dissertation that Africa still follows to this day,
Yes.
that Lomax took his concept of these people being whatever they are, not being worthy of anything, and being able to marginalize them, went in and took their music because they were considered nothing, second class, third class. Yesterday, Big Chief, Shaka Zulu of the Golden Feather Hunters, Big Chief, Big Chief, when we talk about the culture of our city of New Orleans, you have men in this culture that go more than the extra mile, that sacrifice more than what they have, sacrifice more than what they family have to provide for their tribe and their tribe's families and our entire community to even have an idea of who we were before colonialism. Well, this particular Big Chief, because many of them do it, Big Chief Fayaya, much respect. Big Chief Fayo, much respect. When you're looking at what these people do, Big Chief Shaka Zulu went to Africa and went to Tanzania and went to the tribe of Massai, and the suit that he wore yesterday was beaded by the tribe of Massai.
That's deep. He beaded that thing together, uniting the lands once again.
Uniting us in the way that we should be united, not by somebody's hypothesis, not someone else's view of us, but the way that we do it. Now, the funny part about this is, in talking to Big Chief Shaka Zulu, he said that when he was in Tanzania with the tribe, they were caught up in the style of beating in which we do, that they were enamored with the way that our culture is over here. So if Melville Horowitz was correct in anything that he said, then why would that culture think that we were a different culture, but appreciated our culture? Now, what does that mean? Not that we're different, just means that we are independently beautiful and independently inspiring. And what does that mean? That means that we didn't come from them, but we share the same spirit. We come from the same earth. We are humans. We are servants of the Most High. Our beating resembles the Yoruba style of beating of Africa. How does that happen? It's not by accident. And the Yoruba means Judah. If we use European way of pronouncing Yoruba, it would be Jubia, because it would be considered Judah. They pronounce it correctly, Yoruba, with the Y-A. Just like Judah should be pronounced Yehuda or Yudah. Just like the city, just like the state, Utah, that they took from Judah, which is Judah. When you understand phonetically how they changed our names and alter our letters to disconnect us from us, they use academia, which is what we're proving tonight. They use academia to toe tag us, and then to tell us whatever direction they want us to go in, so that we can't tell by our language and by our culture, that we don't think about it by saying, hey, you do the same thing I do. We got to have a connection, not the connection of, oh, I must have came from Africa, so that's why I know how to do it, because I came from your tribe. No. Uptown and downtown both stitch, but you go up to a third wall dude and tell him he from seven wall, and watch how he act. You go tell the uptown dude that his people came from downtown. See how he act.
That's not even like 3 miles.
Everybody thinking that's not even 3 miles.
We're talking over 300.
If I tell a dude from the seven wall, man, your people from the Place. Say, bro, I'm from New Orleans, bro. Nah, you want them to Place. You come from the river parishes. Or even a dude from the river parish gonna be like, nah, partner, I come from the river parish. I ain't from New Orleans. You dig? You gotta think about how we act and how we talk to each other, right? Play Indian, yeah, Kevin Shotgun, that's what I'm saying. How we talk to each other. We don't talk to each other like that. Yeah. However you do is what the Most High gave you. How I flip it, how I work it, how I do what I do, that's me. Having your culture and heritage being told to you by someone that is not of your culture and heritage, you are doing yourself a disservice in believing that. When the people that you need to talk to is right next to you or a phone call away.
Well, you know, Melville Herskovich, his mentor, teacher, Frank Boas,
Yeah, got it.
who's a German Jew, first generation in this country, is called the father of American anthropology.
I know y'all may say, what does that mean? Why y'all tripping because he's the father of anthropology?
Yeah,
Yo, go ahead.
the father, the Jewish father of African American studies,
Slow.
is a guy called Melville Herskovich, and the German father of American anthropology is Frank Boas. So you got the people that are the fathers of these different countries' histories are European Jews.
So well, y'all know what, could you do me a favor? Can you pull up the definition of anthropology? Because I think y'all not getting what we're saying. You got two Jews. Let's just say Europeans, right? You have two Europeans that are known as the fathers of two different disciplines of American academia, which if American academia is correct in what we're saying, the world is following our academia, right? Our thought process. America's number one, right? So you have two Europeans that are first generations to America. They are the fathers of the concept of what America believes is a black person. And that means you can't be indigenous, you can't be Aboriginal Indian, that in order for, in America, for you to be Indian, you have to be these Mongolian Europeans.
Oh, yes. And you know why you have to be? Because Frank Boas studied those Mongolian Indians.
Bing,
He's
bing,
the
bing.
one. He studied them for over 5 years. Not only that, but at the World's Fair
Yeah.
in 1892, the World's Fair, because it was celebrating the 400-year anniversary of Christopher Columbus coming to America, ladies and gentlemen. He never made to America.
He never came to North
Okay?
America.
He did the exhibition on Christopher Columbus coming to America, which he never came. And in that exhibition, he had studied the Inuit and Eskimo Indians over in
Canada.
Canada and the Northwest Pacific, and he had them come in and do all of their programming and all of that, and set up the entire World's Fair to show that they're the Native Americans. And then started dealing with this idea of causality and causation. When it comes to people and where they're from, it's not really about evolution in the sense that no, I'm black and I'm here on this land. You brought black people forcefully to this land. We made it together. That would be considered evolution.
Yes.
We became a hybrid of black.
Yeah.
What he's saying is, oh no, there's no connection with the history. The Africans are all Africans from Africa, and the
And
native.
we brought every one of you that's in America came from
brought y'all
Africa
here,
in 1619,
and the
and
natives
the Inuits were here.
They were here
way before you guys. So you have the guy that studied under Frank Boas and in anthropology. Give him the definition, because
The definition of anthropology is the study of human societies and cultures and their development.
so he's telling you, or America has put him in the place as the father. And what does father mean? That means it's the beginning of the thought. Every dissertation, every paper, every book that has happened since then references that, builds upon that thought. No other one. And anything else that's brought is when you hear on CNN, great new discovery comes up and that goes against what we've been knowing. But you don't hear that when it comes to you. Nobody's studying you because they feel like they got you in the box that they want you in. You in? Get that you in?
He
Yeah.
supported Darwin as well.
Who said you came from apes?
Yeah.
Darwin said that the Most High got it wrong when he first made you. He first made you an ape. And then from there you evolved into a talking, walking human being. So Darwinism said we come from apes. Boaz says that our culture has nothing to do with us being of the land because all of them come from Europe. So if I'm writing a book about this land, I'm the father of this land, I'm going to tell you that it is not important if I came from this land. It is important that I know what I'm saying about this land. And then I can get a whole bunch of people that look like me that's in control to say, yeah. That's it. So this person tells you that Boaz tells you that all the Indians came from Canada, the Inuits, Mongolians, and the guy that learned from him, Horowitz, he then says all the black people that was on this land came from Africa, and they act just like the tribe of Massai in Africa, which in Africa is not a good thing. So here in America, as they study, they think that we aren't a good thing for America, or we have to be put into reservations or put into projects. Our projects are reservations, by the way. A little quink-a-dink. Our projects, even though they're tearing them down, we still have the neighborhoods. Our projects were reservations off of the thought process of Horowitz, Melville Horowitz. And then he went to Haiti. And from him to Horowitz to Lomax, chronicling our music, you can point at those three men and their books, concepts, or whatever, as the toe tagging, place putting of black people in America.
Yep.
W.E.B. Du Bois, Zora Neale Hurston, all learned from Horowitz, Melville Horowitz, at the University of Chicago, where Boaz and Melville were tenured professors.
Lovely.
Yeah. And Chicago's really pro-black. They get that from that University of Chicago, pretty deep in there with that Africanism.
Oh, yeah.
So yesterday in our carnival, this community of New Orleans, this carnival that connects all of diaspora, wherever we are, we celebrate carnival, from Trinidad to Tanzania to New Orleans, to Haiti, to South America, Brazil,
Asia,
Indonesia, all of the places we celebrate carnival. And we mask, we wear feathers, we wear beads, we wear stones. We are connected by our culture and our migration. Not by a name that puts our own community at odds with each other about history that most of us don't even know where the history came from. If we have a conversation with someone and tell them that they're indigenous to this place, to North America, they get upset and say that, no, my people from Africa and blah, blah, blah. And when we say, yeah, that Israel is Africa as well, It's on the same tectonic plate as Africa. It makes it the same
Makes
continent.
sense.
So when we say yes, that people from Israel migrated, exoduses from Egypt and from the area to South Sudan, to the Sudan of Africa, which was the slave coast, and then to Spain and to Iberia Peninsula, then to the Americas. And then when Rome came in and started oppressing and dispersing even more, our people ran to those same places, and the Spanish and the Romans made slave posts in all of our regions. And they circulated us from the western to eastern hemisphere for the last 600, well, what would that make that from now last thousand, at least thousand to 1018 years, at least 1019 years. That would mean from 1000 to 2019 we have been fleeing from an exodus, from oppression to the four corners of this earth, from the curses of Deuteronomy 28. The reason why we have the story is because the victor always writes the story. Your Egyptian reliefs are from the pharaohs that won the wars. America subjugated the Aboriginal copper colored people here, so the history books are written by them.
It's only natural when you've been taken over for you to be written out of history. You know,
So when we have the conversation and we tell you that you are Aboriginal, indigenous to this land, and that all of us didn't come from Africa, we're not saying that originally all of us didn't come from Pangea, and then when it was split, that we continued our migrations, and through our spiritual turning away from the Most High, we have been on the run, which has made us go to every corner of the earth looking for refuge and safety. And they have followed us and captured us in every one of those places. That is a fact. So when we give this information, oh, we was gonna show. Yeah, you want to show the? Yeah. We got to show you guys the suit that Shaka did, and the tribe of Massai of Tanzania, how they beat it, this beautiful suit, and how they did it in the 3D. They beat it in 3D. If you understand our culture, that they do a lot of 3D and sequence and then beading in stones. But this is fully 3D beaded, which is not easy to do because I'll show you the process. But anyway, we're gonna flip these cameras around so you guys can see. And here we go. Shaka's in all white. That's his medicine man. I mean, that's 5-point crown, 70 pounds. He got the knife of Massai. The dagger that he has on his right hand side was given to him by the chief of the Massai of the Tanzania. guys around. Yeah, I just wanted to give you guys a shout or show you that piece because that suit all the way down to the dagger that he had was really touched by our cousins, our family that's in Africa. I was definitely our cousins, definitely people, our family. That connection is how we connect. Before colonialism and us struggling, we traveled. We spoke multiple languages. My brother speaks multiple languages. You'll find that most first generations in America, they kids speak multiple languages. Like it's nothing. We that's born here have been stripped, and we only know one English, one language, which is sad, and I'm part of that. I'm sad unless you learn Spanish, which is just another colonial language. They don't offer you in high school Haiti how to speak Creole, which is what all our people spoke, which is what we should be speaking. To be honest with you, because it's part of the Hebraic language. So all we're saying tonight, and we're about to get into a little bit of this wisdom of Solomon so that, we can bring all of this together because wisdom is the only way that we're going to defeat this enemy and have salvation. Wisdom is the one shot that kills all the birds. Wisdom is the one shot that kills all the birds. Wisdom is salvation. It's the Ruach HaKodesh. Wisdom will see you through troubled waters. Wisdom will help you will discern for you the information and the spirits and the people that you come in contact with. Wisdom is the thing that can calm your spirit when you want to take somebody's head off. Or if you are in an irrational moment, wisdom, the understanding of how precious life is and the system that we're in and knowing that it is always pushing us to the edge to hate our brothers, to hate our sisters, to have expectations that we should not have for each other. So, my brothers, is there anything else you want to touch upon on these Hurwitz and Frank Boaz brothers before we get into? I thought that was that Mason. I thought I saw.
No, this is just the last section is about how the Maasai's lifestyle centers around their cattle.
Yeah.
They're very connected to their cattle and just raising the cattle and eating off of it, whatever the case is. But I just really think about it, and you think about the
buffalo,
the buffalo, and how we're living over here, and how even in Scripture the commandments that were given to us, the principles that were given to us to follow, to stick to the lifestyle, it was talking about our cattle too. Mm-hmm. The cattle was involved because we were a cattle raising people. Yeah. So when I think about this, it actually connects back to the whole conversation altogether. Yeah. But Melville Herskovich created. He influenced ecologists and policymakers about the harm that the Maasai herding tribes were bringing
Instagram,
to that area.
Go to Kingfish G or go to our Hebrew State of Being YouTube right now because Instagram only gives me an hour with you guys. So you're about to be timed out in less than 10 seconds. So please go to YouTube, Hebrew State of Being, or check over Instagram to Kingfish G.
Yes.
Yeah.
So Melville Herskovich, he helped to influence ecologists and policymakers about the harm that the Maasai were causing to the savanna rangelands. Now these dudes don't overhunt anything; they only hunt to eat. That's it.
For their tribe.
But he convinced them that they were doing wrong, right? Mm-hmm. That they were dangerous. This concept was later proven false by anthropologists, but is still deeply ingrained in the minds of ecologists and Tanzanian officials.
Yeah.
This influenced British colonial policymakers in 1951 to remove all Maasai
All
from the
Maasai.
Serengeti and relegate them, keep them in one area around the Norongo conservation area. The plan was to put the Maasai interests above everything else, but the promise was never kept. And what actually happened was that they spread HIV in that area. They sectioned them off and then just
Drop a little bit of
dropped a
HIV.
little HIV right there.
Now, before then, this tribe in Africa
Never had HIV.
never had an HIV. It was never an issue. Now, they tell you the stories was that it came from people having sex with monkeys in Africa. Now, the Maasai tribe is a very tight-knit tribe. They don't go outside the tribe. They don't do all these things. So how did AIDS get into their tribe?
Only people I know that have sex with animals don't look like me.
Don't look like me. Not really into that type of thing.
Yeah, they got all kind of stuff about that. They into some animal.
Bestiality is real on that side of paganism. Bestiality and paganism go hand in hand.
It's a rite of passage.
When you look at the Baphomet, he is a half human, half animal. And the women are the satanic ladies, that's their desire is to mate with this
Because he
Baphomet.
loves sex and he's half animal. So what do you think you're gonna be into?
Yeah, it's primitive.
Bestiality.
You know, bestiality, right? You dig? So it shows that the entire ecologist, because and how do we know this to be true? That is still being pushed on the Maasai today, or that even though anthropologists have said it's erroneous, why is it still going on today? Because they are still subjected to some of the most barren lands in Africa. Barren.
Still can grow out of it. They literally
Oh,
can grow
bruh.
in the desert.
They grow in the
They
desert.
said the Maasai are going to be the ones to show people how to actually survive because they're survivors. They're only surviving because you put them out there.
Don't you love when these doggone Europeans talk about how much you survived
So
through
resilient.
You are the reason
Put
for
'em
me
out
being
there.
resilient. They never talk about that part. Never talk about that. How can we be so resilient? We don't do it to each other. We ain't doing it to each other. So when we juxtapose the same way Horowitz did, saying that the Maasai and the indigenous black people here, we had the buffalo. When Andrew Jackson came through, the same one that we still got this statue of in the French Quarter that they forgot about in the process of tearing down all the other statues, that Andrew Jackson was the biggest culprit of them all, just because he was a president,
Don't mean nothing.
because he was worse. He had more power and he pushed the issue more. Anyway, I'm not going to say Andrew Jackson, but Andrew Jackson, in his killing or manifest destiny and moving the tribes out, they killed our food supply. They killed all the buffalo. They couldn't kill us. They couldn't find us. It was on the terrain. They had to kill our food supply because if you understand war tactics, that's 101 in war tactics. You cut off the supply of your enemy. This is not that they hated buffalo. This is not that they did a study and said that that's the centerpiece of our community. They understand that you cut off supply because they are warlike people, as it is written in scripture. They are warlike people. So therefore, they killed this. If you Google it, there's mounds, millions of buffalo they killed that they didn't eat the meat. They didn't do anything with it. They just killed it so that the Indians, get this. Let's give a truth here for all of my brothers that that go into the indigenous, from African American to indigenous, or all of our learned people that talk about Indians had slaves. When we let's give true facts about how this Indian slavery happened. Indian slavery happened because they killed all of our resources, our food supply. Once they did that, the Boaz boys, Frank and them that identified these Inuit Indians, they made them 5 civilized tribes. The reason that they became civilized was not because they had a government, because the Creek Indians and the Cherokee Indians created their own government and they crushed them. That's not what made you civilized. What made you civilized was that you joined the slave trade, the chattel slave trade. The way that they made the Indians become a part of that slave trade was that they killed the food supply and said that if you caught our renegade slaves, which were the indigenous other tribes that they were moving into their areas, said if you go out and capture the runaway slaves or runaway Indians and bring them back, we will feed you. Facts. So now instead of going and hunting and planting, they were going and capturing slaves or runaway Indians and getting food and alcohol. And who manufactured the alcohol? The European Jews in Newport, New York manufactured all the alcohol that they shipped through. Which one?
Rhode Island.
And Rhode Island. And shipped through all of the reservations or all of the places that they met indigenous people. There were no, I repeat, there were no Mongolian Indians in Louisiana. Ever. I'm going to go there. In our present day boot of Louisiana, there was never a Mongolian Inuit Indian. Never. They can't prove it. They can't show you one. They can't give you one artifact. They can't show it to you. Ask them. Even at Poverty Point, they try to say that the Mississippians look like the Inuits because why? They got it from Boaz, from Frank Boaz. Now, anybody that ever makes up a picture of an Indian in America makes him an Inuit Indian because of Frank Boaz. We're showing you how you became slaves here. We're showing you what philosophy, what thought processes have encapsulated you into a slave title of African American.
What keeps you a slave?
Keeps you a slave. We're not telling you to go out and fight the government, be Moors, and do all that. We're saying, man, you got enough brains up here. You got enough spirit once you understand the information to know how to make your moves. We ain't going to give you no government papers to show you how to break from. We are in Mizraim. We are under the Most High's punishment, not these Europeans' punishment. The only way that you break the Europeans' punishment and the Most High's punishment is by coming back to the Most High. And the only way you can go back to the Most High is to know your position. And you ain't the Gentile. You ain't the Gentile. You ain't the Gentile. You ain't the Gentile. You are the Yahudim. You are the chosen people. So when we say how we got off of doing us, they killed our food supplies, they cut off our resources, they killed our capitals because they are warlike people. Then they made us capture our own for food and alcohol. Then they cut a deal with the Inuits, who are Mongolian Europeans, who are their cousins, because they all traveled from Europe together.
And they've been building relationship with them the whole time.
Building relationship with the whole time.
He studied them for over 5 years, lived with them, knew them
Lived
by
with them.
name. They were doing events together, exhibitions together.
Sweat lodges.
Ooh, sweaty.
Sweat lodge.
Sweaty, sweaty, sweaty.
Sweat lodge. Can't even get the rhythm.
Bruh, if you want to see some terrible rhythm,
Drumming rhythm.
go to one of these European Indian circles. My brother, you are not indigenous to anything.
You like what frequency is you on?
Indigenous
Is
people
you on?
have rhythm. Period.
What is you on?
You can't argue that. When you start hearing beats that even jazz can't produce these kind of beats.
Right. You know what I'm saying? Jazz. And it's the most improv
This is
discipline of music we have. Yeah.
disturbing.
Disturbing. So the 5 civilized tribes, and the only way they became civilized is that they accepted slaves.
Yep.
That was the criteria of being civilized. Understand that in European law, civilized means that you follow the law of the land, and the land was Jesus. And Jesus, by the papal bull, who says he's the viceroy, which is the representation of the Most High on the earth, which is blasphemy in itself.
Yeah, pretty much.
In itself.
The Pope is God on earth. To the Catholics. Not me.
Is to accept chattel slavery, which was ordained by the God representation on earth. So you're gonna sit up in your church and say and tell me that the Yahushua and the Most High that we follow is not your God, is not your Jesus, but your Jesus enslaved you directly. His laws, because the Pope says he's the viceroy, which means that he is the representation of Jesus. That is their words. We're not our words. Understand that the Catholics said that their Pope is their Jesus. He is the representation that God speaks to him. And he made papal bull, which made law, means the Pope's law. The papal bull means the Pope's law. The Pope's law said that he could subjugate anyone that didn't believe in their Jesus. Isusus. Isusus. Now you want to sit back and say, you know, that's not my God, or my God don't believe in them things, or my God's a good God. My God don't how they say my God don't ain't mad at me for being homosexual. That ain't my God ain't an angry God. My God don't. What you want to say is that their God, their European God doesn't do that, because he's about lawlessness. He is the Baphomet. He is about do as thy wilt, with no morals and no conscience. You are absolutely right. That God that you believe in, yeah, he don't care. But the one that owns salvation, the one that is over the fiery lake, the one that their God is trying to be like, the one that was made by, you know what I'm saying? Their God was made by our God, you know, by our Most High. You know what I'm saying? If you understand pecking order, since y'all into understanding who's on top and who's on bottom, because that's what you're doing in your European thing, right? Because the viceroy, no, he's on top. So if the viceroy God is kissing up to our Most High, then what are you doing following them? And them say that they can enslave you. And them, what you don't know, they go to the fact that the Most High cursed us. See, that's the other part you don't get. That these Europeans, most of them, the ones in the Vatican and all that, they think that they are following out the laws of the Deuteronomy, enslaving y'all because y'all turned away. That's the psychological bull crap that comes with it.
But you can own the curses, but you can't own the birthright.
You dig? And that's what we got with the Jewish people. They trying to have the curses and the money. It don't work like that.
The Pope wears a yarmulke, so
Yeah, the Pope wears a yarmulke.
that's not confusing.
Nah, that. And also, when he doesn't have the yarmulke on, he has the Nimrod fish hat on, which goes back to paganism, to the first ones that believed in the devil that created their own god. But that's also confusing.
Well, that's why he's at the opposite end, or the end of, after you're done celebrating the feast of Bacchus, you got to go to the Pope's minions in order to get ashes. And I don't know if they're like ashes of who or what.
Right, what ashes of what there's actually putting on your forehead.
Whose ashes are those?
So I don't know if y'all caught that, right? So after you pray to the devil with Bacchus, you go right back to the same Bacchus devil Nimrod in a different form of the Pope and the Catholic Church,
Yeah, the minions, the priests.
and ask for forgiveness
That
for
are
what he
known
told you to do.
for raping children across the board. And if you don't know that, you're lying. They're known for doing that.
No, man. Look, the shamans, I've heard witch doctors and shamans, you know, them voodoo people. Didn't they have that big old ring where they had all the voodoo people, had all of the
children?
molesting the children?
No, you talk about the Clintons.
No!
Oh no,
Was it the
wrong
Clint-
group. No. They got their own thing. They actually do that in the air now. They fly. the
Right,
kids
they
up in
fly
the
them, and that's the
air.
Mile High new club, the new
we're
Mile
talking
High
something
club.
different. No,
So not them. So wow.
No, the Catholic priests.
Catholics. Damn,
Yep.
damn.
The Pope says.
That's funny. You never hear about that as evil as voodoo or voodoo or is supposed to be or hoodoo is. You don't never hear about no massive cases of rape and molestation of children.
It's not their bag. Leave that to the Pope. They do that very well. They do that quite well.
Damn.
You know, there's enough Jesuits and Catholics out
Jesuits.
there
Oh my goodness.
to handle.
Man, every time
handle
you say
all
the word
raping
Jesuit, I feel like I need to take a
possible.
bath.
Yeah,
I mean-
that's why you keep the shower near. Those guys are dirty.
Ooh, you want to know the devil on earth? Jesuits. Just look up their history. Jesuits. You want to know who the enemy is? If you really just want to put a finger on somebody, if you really just want to tell somebody who to hate, go with the Jesuits. When all else failed, hate a Jesuit. Yeah.
Tulane University.
That takes away color, takes away racism, classism. Just
The
hate a
Cripples.
Jesuit. So we're gonna read some Wisdom of Solomon 14. I really hope this show that we've explained it. What cultural appropriation tonight, which is the theme of our show on Wednesday nights, of how Frank Boas, anthropologist, culturally appropriated our cultures and said that it was the culture of the Inuits. We showing you how Horowitz created a new culture and made a new connection to Africa and us that was not one that we wrote about or made a connection and then altered it to fit their manifest destiny and project reservation ideology and future plans. We showing you that the tribe of Massai, who Melville studied and said that we resembled them, actually admired our culture, and meaning that they knew that it wasn't of their culture. Even though they do beating, it wasn't the same as our beating, and they knew that it didn't come from them. And they enjoyed learning our style of beating there and learning more about our culture of New Orleans there. Not our culture of spinning rims. They didn't really care about the rims or the Lucci or the Gucci. They didn't care about any of that. But they did respect the cultural practices of these black Mexican Indians here. So we've shown in that between our two cultures that we respect and love each other, but we are not the same. Wisdom allows us to be able to love and appreciate other cultures and not make their stuff ours or ours theirs. Just celebrating each other.
You don't covet each other's culture.
We don't, right. And I don't care if my cousin married her and she brought that into my family. If a man that's married into my family or a woman that is married into my family and brings their culture into what my family culture does, and it helps, it gives an extra twist, but doesn't take over that, then we celebrate that and we add that, and it becomes part of the colorful aspect of what our culture is. But I'm not gonna go back, and nor should he or she that comes into my family's culture that brought something in and say, now my family's culture is their culture. No, that's just wrong. That's not how this works. That's not how any of this works. I love that commercial. Chapter 14, Wisdom of Solomon. Well, I'm gonna read 19, the end of 13, so we go into a context. So it says, out of chapter 13, verse 19, and for gaining and getting, and for good success of his hands, ask it ability to do of him that is most unable to do anything. This is most unable to do anything. Again, one preparing himself to sail and about to pass through raging waves, calleth upon a piece of wood more rotten than the vessel that carrieth him. For verily, desire of gain devised that. See what I'm saying? It says, for verily, desire of gain, him wanting something, is why he devised that. And the workman built it by his skill. But those providence, O Most High, govern it, for thou hast made a way in the sea and a safe path in the waves, showing that thou canst save from all danger. Yea, through a man went to sea without art. It says, so now it's talking about a man that went through sea without the Most High. Nevertheless, thou wouldest not that the works of thy wisdom should be idle. And therefore do men commit their lives to a small piece of wood, and passing the rough sea in a weak vessel are saved. For in the old time also, when the proud giants perished, the hope of the world governed by the hand escaped in a weak vessel, meaning that Noah escaped from the giants when the Most High wiped out the earth, and there were all these mighty men and all these mighty kingdoms, that Noah's ark, a dead piece of wood, was able to save them, and left to all ages a seed of generations. For blessed is the wood whereby righteous cometh. Whoo. The wood that carries righteousness. So it talked about one man going to sea with a safe passage. That came with righteousness. The one that goes rough seas, that went without righteousness with that wood. But that which is made with hands is cursed, as well it as he that made it. He because he made it, and it because being corruptible, it was called God. Because it was corruptible, it was called God, meaning that they believed in it like it was a God. For the ungodly and his ungodliness are both alike hateful unto the Most High. For that which is made shall be punished together with him that made it. So I'm talking about, see, when Horowitz creates that, when that ideology of this African Americanism that has pegged us and divides us, when that falls, so does the authors of that fall. Meaning that you ain't got to go to war looking for Horowitz, he already dead, right? But it's his ideology that lives on that we're fighting. And since you can't go and kill him or the past presidents, you have to kill the mentality, and not with their descendants, but with yourself. When you kill that mentality and you gain, or you take hold of who you are in the Most High, then now you are righteous, and whatever you build will sell. For that which made, well, for that which is made shall be punished together with him that made it. Therefore, even upon the idols of the Gentiles, ooh, I told y'all ain't the Gentiles, shall there be a visitation, because in the creatures of the Most High they are become an abomination and the stumbling blocks to the souls of men, and a snare to the feet of the unwise. So when Melville Horowitz, Herskovitz, thank you, and Frank Boas put out these snares of ideology, puts out this stupidity, hate into the world, unwise men follow it and then propagate it or push it through our own communities and our own societies. Zora Neale Hurston, W.E.D. Du Bois. For the devising of idols was the beginning of spiritual fornication, and the invention of them the corruption of life. Whoa! Oh! And they got y'all thinking fornication is having sex with another partner. They got you thinking that every time you read about fornication, that it got you on a lower vibration thinking about your sexual activity. Nah, people. Most High talking about fornication of these false idols, because that is worse than you going out on a Friday night and having sex with some woman that you don't know. That's not what the problem is. The problem is having these gods that you don't know and loving them. That's fornication, partner. Yeah. Yeah. Come on, man. We're going to wrap a taste tonight. So, corruption of life. For neither were they from the beginning, neither shall they be forever. Wow. So when my brothers get mad at me, and my sisters, my queens even more, when they get upset at me about discussing Islam being 600, being a baby of the dogma religions, that it only came around in 600 AD. And right here in scripture, it says it wasn't there in the beginning, it shall not be there in the end. So how can I believe in Allah that was not there in the beginning? He cannot be there in the end. Cannot. Jesus can't be there in the end. Zeus can't be there in the end. The Pope won't be there in the end. Jehovah Witness, you keep going with the J like you ain't all part of this European system. Like the J, because you got the Sabbath going, that you not realizing that you calling on a false God. Anyway. For by the vainglory of men, they entered into the world. Saying these gods entered into the world by the vanity of men, meaning that man wanted you to worship something other than the Most High, so he gave you an image and a concept to believe in, to follow him. And therefore shall they come shortly to an end. For a father afflicted with untimely mourning, when he hath made an image of his child soon taken away, now honored him as a god, which was then a dead man. Wow. What did he mean by that? God was a dead man. What does the Most High mean when he says that he is of life? That you worship idols of death. Why we trip on our people that into that worship death? Because everybody that believes in the Catholic Church believes in death. They'll believe in a dead idol, wooden stone, because Yahweh Shai is not in that image. He said, Most High said, do not make an graven image of me. And do not worship stones and sticks. But yet, they do it every Sunday. But yet, they do it 3 times a day to the east. You, and delivered to those that were under him ceremonies and sacrifices. Check that. Which was then a dead man, and delivered to those that were under him ceremonies and sacrifices. Thus, in process of time and ungodly customs grown strong, was kept as a law, and graven images were worshipped by the commandments of kings. It said these things became laws.
Yeah.
Did we all have the day off yesterday? Was this a law in New Orleans for everybody to be off for Mardi Gras?
Yeah.
It's a law, huh?
The kids get the whole entire week off. So now they have a good feeling about the Mardi Gras. They grow up with a good feeling because they get time off.
Isn't Bacchus, when you look at his name in history, the same god as Nimrod
Yeah.
and the same god as Gilgamesh?
Yeah.
Those are facts, by the way, you know. And the king of Mardi Gras is a god, is a Rex, right? Is the king of Mardi Gras. And the law has been ordained. It sounds like this one paragraph, this one verse in scripture. I'm gonna go ahead and read it again because maybe y'all missed it and see how it applies to Mardi Gras. Thus, in process, okay, yeah, and I'm gonna read verse 15 of chapter 14. For a father afflicted with untimely mourning, when he hath made an image of his child, soon taken away, now honored him as a god, which was then a dead man. So a man took his child, like we have in our king cake, right? The baby, right? And he made an image of his child and made that a god. And then delivered those that were under him ceremonies and sacrifices. What is Mardi Gras? Ceremonies and sacrifices. Thus, in the process of time, an ungodly custom grown strong was kept as a law. Verse 16. And graven images were worshipped by the commandments of kings, whom men could not honor in presence, because they dealt far off. They took the counterfeit of this vestige from far and made an express image of a king whom they honored, to the end that by their forwardness they might flatter him that was absent, as if he were present. So what does it mean? I mean, they took images and created their own, and they spread it everywhere around and said that, you know, see how much we respect you? We got your beads in the house. You see how we respect you? We got crowns all over the place. Also, the singular diligence of the artificer did not artificer, okay. Also, the singular diligence of the artificer did not help to set forward the ignorant to more superstitions. For he pre-adventure willing to please one in authority, forced all his skills to make the resemblance of the beast of the best fashion. These floats, does that sound like floats? How people are crafting the best images of wrecks, of kings, of all of this iniquity? And so the multitude, allured by the grace of the work, took him now for a god, which a little before was but honored as a man. So when you got your hands and you're screaming, you're giving your offerings for these floats and these images on these floats, of what were just men, but now you have made kings and honored them as 21. And this was an occasion to deceive the world. Is Mardi Gras not, I think, the largest North American celebration, I think? Yeah. For men serving either calamity or tyranny did subscribe unto stones and stocks the incommunicable name. Stocks in the incommunicable name. Moreover, this was not enough for them, that they erred in the knowledge of the Most High, but whereas they lived in the great war of ignorance, those so great plagues called they peace. So the plagues put a stop to all that. For whistle they slew their children. For wireless they slew their children in sacrifices, or used secret ceremonies, or made revealings of strange rites, revelings of strange rites. They kept neither lives nor marriages any longer undefiled, but either one slew another treacherously, or grieved him by adultery, so that they reigned in all men without exception, blood, manslaughter, theft, and dissimulation, corruption, unfaithfulness, tumults, and perjury. Wow. So that there reigned in all men without exception, blood, manslaughter, theft, and excuse my words, dissimulation, corruption, unfaithfulness, tumults, and perjury, disquieting of good men, forgetfulness of good turns, defiling of souls, changing of kind, disorder in marriage, adultery, and shameless uncleanliness. For the worshiping of idols not to be named is the beginning, the cause, and the end of all evil. For either they are mad when they be merry, or prophesy lies, or live unjustly, or else lightly forswear themselves. I'm not sure what forswears mean. We're gonna go. Can you look that up for me, brother? Forswear. Forswear themselves.
Oh, to reject or to deny.
So they reject or deny the truth that they know within themselves. For in so much as their trust is in idols. So it's saying you don't trust in what the Most High is speaking to you, that you trust what Jesus said. You trust what the Roman Empire has told your priest to tell you this week in the Epistolette, which is also the same thing that followed by money the Baptist priest. So, for in so much as their trust is in idols, for have no life, though they swear falsely, yet they look not to be hurt. They want to throw stones and want to hide in our glass house. Howbeit for both causes shall they be justly punished, both because they thought not well in the Most High, giving heed unto idols, and also unjustly swore in deceit, dispensing holiness. For it is not the power of them by whom they swear, but it is the just vengeance of sinners that punisheth away the offense of the ungodly. For it is not the power of them by whom they swear, not the false idols, but it is the just vengeance of the sinners that punisheth away the offense of the ungodly. That's chapter 5. That's chapter 14, the Wisdom of Solomon. We have gone strong for 100 minutes. I think that'll be our show for the night. Understand, man, that what we're saying in the wisdom of Solomon is that when you follow these false idols and these men of false idols, that your ship is corrupt, and all that you create out of that is corrupt, and that it will end, that it will not sail in rough waters. So, to put it in, I guess, layman terms, that when the times get rough, your Jesus doctrine is not going to help you. You will sink. Thank you, Sharonda. That doctrine won't last. It won't make it through the fire. Those false idols, it's not going to keep you whole. What you'll find is that you won't get the answers, and you'll say, well, I guess most God didn't want that for me. No. It wasn't meant for me to have. No. You was asking the wrong thing, a wrong person. Yeah, that would be it. When times get rough and you're not getting deliverance, you're not getting discernment, you're not getting your path laid out for you, that's because your doctrine can't float. This wood that you're on of ungodliness, unrighteousness, won't float. Because if the Most High is the creator of all things, he also created your turmoil in order for you to come back to him, to show you that your false idols can't deliver you, and that only he can deliver you. So if he created those problems that you're having, then you can't get out of it until you go to him. And none of your subordinate sacrifices, idols, altars, none of that is going to see you through it. Put your faith in the Most High. Hallelujah. All praises. We'll see y'all on Friday.
Wednesday, right?
Today is Wednesday, so we'll see you on Friday. Yeah, these days are going, man. I was on the phone with somebody earlier.